clan society, people, if you talk to them about the Highland clearances, they say, well, how do people live in the clans? And it's very difficult if you're talking to people who have been brought up in our present form of society and whose parents lived in it, whose grandparents, great-grandparents, and whose books, if you find a book about our society, it's all talking about one kind of society where you have laws and policemen and courts and prisons and hangmen and so forth. And the theory is you're told what to do. And you then say, well, in the clans, they didn't have all these people. And people are amazed. For example, you occasionally get some historian who hasn't really worked out what he's doing. And he was, for example, G.M. Trevelyan, great historian, and I thoroughly enjoyed his social history, which, and I only wish my book was as successful, he sold 400,000 copies. And much of it is very interesting. But when he got onto the Highlands, he really didn't know what he was talking about. The clan chiefs were dictators, rough, wild dictators, and anybody who objects to what the clan chief said was thrown into noisome dungeons. I had to look up what noisome meant. It means foul smelling. So apparently it's much worse to be thrown into a foul smelling dungeon than to be thrown into a ever so pleasant pleasant smelling dungeon. However, they were thrown. Now, he cannot have known anything about the Highland. There were no noisome dungeons. There were no dungeons of any kind. And it's so difficult for people who have grown up in one kind of society and have always accepted that kind of society and have never thought deeply about it to be able to comprehend a completely different kind of society. And yet the clan society was completely different. There were no police, there were no armies, there were no courts, there were no lawyers. Speaking as a lawyer myself, I don't know whether that's, I suppose to think that's a good thing. Oh, well, I personally do think it's a good thing. So you may take it from that my opinion of the law and why, after becoming a barrister, I felt I couldn't really go along that line of territory at all. However, the idea that a clan society could keep going without all these appurtenances was beyond them. And the way historians talk about clan chiefs being dictators and telling people what to do, how could a clan chief tell a clan what to do? How could he be a dictator? And the answer is he couldn't be a dictator. Because if he came out and said, you've all got to do X, Y, and Z, and all the clans said, no, we're not going to do X, Y, we're going to do A, B, and C, how can he force them? And the answer is he can't force them. The only army he has got are the clanspeople. And clanspeople, or any people, won't oppress themselves. It is a completely different kind of society. And when you try to talk about clan society and explain it, people are amazed. Well, people will say, but surely everybody would have to agree that it's a good form, or almost everybody would have to agree all the time that it's a good idea to have this kind of society. To which you can only say, our society is in that way exactly the same. Unless almost everybody agreed almost all the time that it was a good form of society, it couldn't last. You go down to Tesco or Sainsbury's or whatever. I go down to Tesco, I'm in this vast hall with all the goods you want to buy there, and there are two classes of people: the people who are buying and the people who are selling. And you look around and you think, well, now, supposing by some curious operation of mental switching, you stopped everybody thinking this is a good way of doing things, and got them to think, I'm going to take what food I want. And supposing everybody then, instead of taking their trolleys with all their weekly groceries past the pay desk, they simply went outside. Now, how would you stop them? Go on, you tell me how. And it's no good saying, oh, the policeman, one policeman, all right, 10 policemen, 20, 100 policemen. Could you arrest everybody who goes into Tesco to collect his food? Where would you put them? You know, you've only got 2 or 3 cells under the police station. You've only got a certain number of prisons which are already overcrowded. How are you going to get thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands? You can't do it. In other words, our society only keeps going because the great majority of people, rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying at the moment, but our society only keeps going because the great majority of people think it's a good thing and go along with all the underlying assumptions of that society. So clan society was exactly the same. It only kept going so long as virtually everybody thought it was a good idea. And sometimes you get people say, oh, sorry, people aren't going to be altruistic. People aren't going to think, well, it's a good thing for everybody, but not particularly for me, but I'll support it because I'm an altruist. You don't have to be an altruist at all. Take one individual clan member, if you could, and you could then question him, say, why do you support clan society? Why do you do what is good for the clan, not particularly good for you in every case, but why do you support what's good for the clan? And he would say, well, I'm in favour of clan society, yes. I think it's a good thing. I think I prosper for being part of clan society, and therefore I support clan society because I'm happy in clan society. So when you come down to it, it's not being altruistic at all. Each individual clan member thought it was better for him or her to support clan society. So that is why clan society kept going for centuries. I mean, the Gaels came over from Ireland 500, 600 AD, and they were still there 1700. So that's over a millennium, and they were still running the same kind of society. So it must have satisfied people, or must in some way have been acceptable for it still to be there. But if everybody in that society thinks it's a good thing, the society will perpetuate itself, exactly like British society in 2021. It's kept going because everybody thinks it's a good idea. And even if a large minority think it's a bad idea or are not prepared to go along with it, you cannot coerce even a fairly small minority. For example, how long have we had laws forbidding drugs, not forbidding alcohol and tobacco, because the people who make the laws like drinking alcohol and like smoking tobacco. But other kinds of drugs, heroin, here we've got opium, we've got poppies growing here. I could take the tops off. I tell my wife every year, take the tops off there, you can make opium, and then from then on, you can finally get heroin. But she hasn't taken my advice yet. And however, all right, the law is passed to say nobody should have drugs. And who is now going to say, all right, there aren't any drugs? Of course, drugs are everywhere in society. And when people in Parliament start talking about drugs, a lot of shamefaced cabinet members say, well, of course, I did sniff at cocaine when I was younger. So it's embarrassing. I mean, are you for it or against it? I personally, I have to say, I'm rather a purist. I'm against it. I've never drunk and I've never smoked tobacco, and presumably that may be why I'm now 93 and all my friends have departed the scene. I'm sorry to say it. I often say to the doctor, thank you for keeping me going. I wish you'd kept my friends going. But he said, if I could have stopped them drinking and smoking, I would have done. But there we are. So it's what I'm trying to say is quite simply this: clan society is the same as any other society in that it has to be supported by the great majority of the people living in that society, or it collapses. And that's exactly the same as our present society. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We're hoping to get more videos out in this of this kind, and if you did like it, please comment, tell us what you thought of it, and if you want to as it were join in, press the notification bell. Thank you.